I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Say, overcast, muggy day in New York City, but that doesn't matter because mentally we are on the tennis court, whacking some tennis balls around.
Easy,
Andrew Quo.
easy. Kids might be listening.
Andrew Quo, are you excited? The Cookies tennis adjacent, tennis pilled, tennis maxed merch drop.
It's a melancholy time of year because, man, when I was little, like mid-August was like the peak of the summer, right? Sitting around at home, watching the Yankees, just doing nothing. But now that I'm an old soul, I'm washed. I'm like, September is coming. You can feel the chill in the air. And then it's going to be Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then February, then the spring, then summer again. It just goes by so fast, but it's true. The U.S. Open is about to hit New York City.
You're having what they call an unk moment.
I'm always having an unk moment. But I was talking with the interns, and I was like, what is the wackest thing we could possibly do the next time? And they're like, you know what the wackest thing is? Pickleball. And I was like, touche. I think pickleball is a psyop of big tennis, trying to make themselves seem cooler. But you know what would make tennis ultimately the coolest sport? A basketball.
If it was basketball.
If you turned the tennis court at Arthur Ashe into a basketball court.
Ooh. You repurpose the net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you cut up the net and you put it up on double rims, and you put up some beat up glass backboards. You don't need a 3-point line.
Let's keep lobs. Let's keep running the baseline. Let's keep the whole court concept.
Bunch of Kevin Loves.
The Las Vegas Aces. They can remain in the sport.
That's right. So the interns have created a new drop of all tennis U.S. Open related merch. I kind of love it.
I think the stuff looks great, and you will too. We've got there is a Brunson El Capitan T-shirt.
Andre Agassi vibes. That's right.
Yep, an homage to 90s Agassi. And then there's also 5 gorgeous hats and a 100% cotton heavyweight crew neck. No, excuse me, hoodie. This one's a hoodie in royal blue embroidery on the chest and wrist. So yeah, that's in the Cookies Hoop store. I suggest you purchase every piece of it immediately. That's just
we're running low on a few
biased.
of them. But when the chill hits Arthur Ashe, you're gonna want that hoodie and 5 hats and Brunson tee to keep yourself warm.
Yeah, and you should really say that in the manner of when the moon hits your eye, like a big pizza pie.
I better see you sitting next to Anna Wintour with the hoodie on and the Brunson tee on top of the hoodie.
When the breeze hits your hoodie, along those lines.
That's right.
So Andrew, we are really in the dog days, and I don't mean the DAWG days, like the true dog days of summer. It is a time when you are full of unk moments. There's no basketball on. Fortunately, there's other stuff to talk about. The conversations have all centered on one overwhelming topic. It's inescapable. Time Again Bar.
Shout out to Time Again, our buddies. We almost rented a studio, the Cookies Lab, right beneath Time. What was it called? It was just called Time at that point, right? Time Cafe.
I want to say it was Time Cafe then.
Mm-hmm.
Within a year or two, it became Time Sushi. I think. And then now it's time again. There was a moment when a consideration was made to call this version of it the charm, as in third time is the charm. But they went with time again. And it's become the spot to hang out over the summer. And it's along Canal, same corridor as Dime Square and the Dime Square Curse, but off the beaten path. It's a little bit further west, and it's basically just hanging out in the parking lot, drinking beer.
And like, you know how I feel about like everyone who makes stuff thinks they have like an idea that they want to project. This is what I want to do. And the more you do it, the more you kind of like, your shadow grows shorter and you kind of make what works. You kind of play the hits. 2 hours into a DJ set, some people are exhausted and it's like, I just want to play music people enjoy. Here are the layups. The percolator. It's time for the percolator. and this is kind of like, you know, our buddies, I love the first iteration. We've sat there and had juices at the First Time Cafe. That was sick. And then I've had sushi at the sushi bar. I've had sake outside. I love that. But they finally hit it, right? Cheap drinks, community, cheap food, grilling, parking lot.
They dropped House of the Jealous Lovers.
Was that James Murphy's like, that was his best work, right?
That was good work.
That was good work. Shout out to the Dare. But like, I especially like it because it kind of broadens Dime Square and siphons some of that energy that was kind of a little too concentrated. I have no problems with Dime Square. I recognize the Dime Square curse, but I like hanging out there. There are many hell squares to enjoy, but like I enjoy the Canal Street scene.
I mean, look, this is how downtown has elongated and spread for generation after generation. One small area becomes congested, becomes more expensive. It changes, however gradually, however swiftly, and then it extends. And that's exactly what happened here. You know, we don't need to belabor the history of quote unquote Dime Square,
Nope.
Hell Square 7, but this was what was always going to happen. It was going to push further south, it was going to push further west, it was going to push further east, and this is a natural extension of that. To their credit, it did not seem as if this was what Time wanted to do. In fact, they viewed it sort of as a running joke, where the name itself was a reference to dimes, where the idea was
shot
that
fired.
well, like, oh, that's Dimes?
Yeah.
So that's Dime Square? Well, we're going to call this Time, so it'll be called Times Square.
Right. I like it. I had a group of friends throughout, like, my 20s and 30s, close group of friends, who had anxiety, but were obsessed with creating spaces within spaces within spaces, which I mean is, like, if there was an opening, they'd be like, well, can I sit in the back? If the back got too crowded, they'd be like, is there a little corner in the back that no one else is at? And if that corner got too crowded, it's like, we're going to go to the bar next door where it's empty. And so they would always kind of chase or run away from the volume of people. And in Dime Square, it has gotten to the point, kind of honestly, like, where it is overrun with everybody. It's great. It's the people from New Jersey, Long Island, Uptown, Murray Hill, Turtle Bay, all, the bedside koi pond. They all kind of descend on Canal Street, and it no longer has like a closeness to it. But that's when
I like that you introduced this concept that it's been overrun by bridge and tunnel. It's great. It's like
I
look,
still
it's
enjoy
fantastic. I love it. It's overrun by people from Jersey and Long Island. It's stellar. It's magnificent.
But this is where I kind of do my annoying thing, where I'm like, listen, if we're going to have drinks in a closet, or if like we're just trying to sit with 5 people, I kind of want to go out there and see what people are wearing, see who's out there, right? So like if if the people who are too anxious to stay in a populated area leave, I'm like, it's kind of fun to be in the populated area, right?
That's your annoying thing?
Wait,
'Cause-
I didn't say that was annoying. I like it. Right?
No, I meant you were going to do your annoying thing, and I was like,
well, it's being
I was like,
contrarian.
what's he going
right?
to do?
Right.
What's he going to do? There's so many options, and it came to like, you wanted to have a beer with like some friends, and I was like, I mean, I just feel like on the totem pole of your annoying things, that's like barely registers to me. That's like one of your best qualities.
Well, you know what I mean? It's like we're always with somebody who's like, ugh, clandestino's full of Bijan Tunnel people. I'm like, yeah, so what? Exactly. I don't know.
Finally.
It's a good bar. You know, like if you go to Corner Bar, it's like, oh, it's a bunch of rich people eating $40 burgers. I'm like, yeah, let's go see what's up.
I was with some friends who kind of avoid clandestino last week, and one of them said, she kind of peered through the window. Was like, no, it's looking a little clandestino-y. I was like, I don't even know what that means.
I'm like, I'll see you inside.
She's like, it's, all right, fine. Like, okay, sure. But yeah, so time again, the alternative to the Dime Square, now Times Square, was just written up by Sam Hines, friend of the pod.
Is he selling everyone out though? Is declaring time again the spot in GQ? Like, you know how Bourdain would be like, and now this place is done because everyone's annoying. And I'm like, but the people who are annoying are your fans. So like, this is kind of a hand slapping that reminds me of the hipster allegation days. It's like, look at these hipsters. I'm like, they just seem like they're really excited about something you're not.
Well, I remember when I was writing about nightlife for the style section of the local broadsheet.
Yeah.
And I always kind of tried to take
The local broadsheet.
I always kind of tried to pay attention to the trajectory of a place where, at least initially, when I first started writing for them, I didn't want to unveil or expose a place too early. And part of that was this preservation of the scene that you're describing, this idea, like let it marinate, bubble, and you know, mutate organically without the influx of new people. Two, there was like the selfishness where if this place was fun and I enjoyed going there, why blow it out of the water right away?
Right.
So there was always this sort of stabilizing period that we would take into account. A spot would open up, it would be popping, and we'd say, let's not review it yet and see what happens. Because a lot of times when a place opens up, the bartenders, the owners, investors, whoever, are able to corral their friends. It's a new spot, it's exciting, people owe them favors, they're giving out free drinks.
Exactly.
So a place early on will seem like it's a little hot spot. But then within a couple weeks, it kind of finds its neutral buoyancy, where those people who sort of owe favors or want to check out the new thing, support their friends, aren't there anymore. And then you sort of see what the place is like. So those are the kind of two trajectories that a new establishment could have. That changed, though, because of the sort of arms race for information. The New York Times started wanting to write about things as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. Like, do it before New York Magazine, do it before whoever the competition would be.
Fuck this, so they broadsheet care. Right.
The local broadsheet.
Yeah.
So they actually did change their approach intentionally and entirely, where they wanted to write about the new spot first, and whether that was to get the clicks, whether that was for cred, it sort of did change that approach. So Time Cafe, or excuse me, Time Again, has kind of nailed it in that when it first opened, it was a lot of friends. It was a lot of people who know the owners, who are Alec and Nick Poe. And it took off like wildfire. And now you go there and there's people who are still within that original, community. There are new people. There was a birthday party there the other night with like a zillion people who are a little more normie than the people who were originally there.
It's bound to happen.
But it's just kind of crowded every night in a good way. like it's a little different on Saturdays or Fridays than it is on a Tuesday, but it's working, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, and we'll see when it gets to November. It kind of gets cold, but the life of that area is kind of like it's become important, right? Because like there's not many places to hang out, and it goes so fast. And you're talking about without thinking about media or journalism, it's hard to tell what a restaurant is like in the first week or two, because they're just kind of ironing it out, and a lot of food review people, food critics, kind of go 3 or 4 times to see. And there's a pump fake with a lot of New York City spots, as you described. The initial drop is always like, oh, these are really interesting people. These are all kind of our friends or people we know of, and the owners are on the floor. It's awesome. But that always changes if it's successful, right? And as an owner, I wonder, like, for example, when Max Fish was popping, it was like, we don't really want that much attention because it's already overrun. But kind of when it closed and then reopened and then closed again and reopened, it was like, yeah, tell everyone we're reopening, like we're open for business. It's like, well, this is confusing messaging. And there comes a time where every owner's like, we just want to make money at this point. Like, we don't care about our friends as much anymore, to be honest. We need to hit numbers if we're going to survive at all.
Yeah, there's just that life cycle. There was a restaurant in Williamsburg that still gets good business, but it was thriving early on. Got some good press. It's a good hangout bar, open till 4 a.m. every night. And they were happy that they were getting bad Yelp reviews. They thought it's funny. That ties into the
the Asian guy
sort
with
of
the Asian food, right? The
Oh,
worst
no, I was
Yelp
thinking-
review.
I was thinking right.
Amazing.
No, this place that kind of fit into like the anti-establishment streak of the chef and the owners, and being a little edgy and avant-garde, and people would go on Yelp and say the bartender thought he was so cool, and you're like that. And you're like, that's great. Because you're
that's
square,
good.
And you're rolling in there, and the bartender is cool guying you and won't give you a drink. Yeah, that lets people know, because if you're cool, you're like, sounds fine.
Well, this
like no issue there.
A savvy owner would be like, who travels all the time? Caitlin Clark. She's a fraud. It's like, ooh, you're doing a good thing. Eyeballs, right? It's like, someone go on Yelp and tell everyone else the scene is too snobby here. It's like, they're not nice. And then watch, the interest level kind of scale up. But then,
okay, so the second part of this is 15 years later, they've opened a second version of this Williamsburg restaurant in like Alphabet City. It doesn't have the same heat that it used to before. So now the calculus has changed. It's like, oh, we kind of need people in the door here. We need to let people know what's happening. We need to promote this place and get it out there. So, as you said, everyone has an Unk moment, a come to Unk moment,
and it's usually rent. But I don't know. Like a life in New York City, I feel like, is a lot about figuring out what you're excited about, figuring out who is going to shame you, and what your tolerance level is. For example, if you told me there was a viral chocolate muffin, and we're all talking about Henrik Christensen posted on TikTok during the Olympics, he's a Norwegian swimmer, about this Olympic chocolate muffin, and people went nuts because it looked fucking delicious, right? And there was a pop-up in the East Village that apparently attracted like 500 or more people, looky-loos, and the lines wrapped around the block, and the shame went out of control on Twitter, because everyone's a sitting duck there, right? If you wait for a Dominic Ansel cronut, you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, someone's taking a picture. Everyone who walks by is like, what are you waiting for, stupid people? It's like, a donut croissant creation that are amazing. Yeah.
You're such a Vic. They're queued up in line. People are like, you're waiting for the Olympic muffin? Cameras are coming out. Videos coming out.
Yep.
Like,
and this ties into
I
like
should have
road
worn my little
rage.
COVID mask.
Road rage and bike rage, right? Like people who are moving being like, you're stupid, bye, and like zoom off. It's like, well, you're just basically throwing down stuff that can have no response, you know? It's like, I'm online, you're walking away, and 2 blocks away, you're making fun of me. But
Yeah, well, in an hour and a half when I'm eating that muffin, joke's on you, bitch.
well, but that was my first question, like, was it delicious? Because it looks awesome. I've seen the viral stuff. It looks incredible, sort of like every viral baked item. I'm like, I would love to try that. Am I willing to wait 2 hours? Depends on who I'm with. Am I willing to wait half an hour? For sure, and lines are fine. Shaming lines, I get it. We're sheep. We're doing stuff. But New York City is great because people are excited about stuff, right? Like in the South, people wait in line for barbecue. In Chicago, people wait in line for Mr. Beef. Have you ever seen the line for Russ and Daughters the day before Christmas? It's fucking insane. The wait is 2 hours.
I mean, it's like this new East Village Italian ice cream place opened up in Greenpoint. 100 people in line on a, warm August night. This
fun.
is kind of in an industrial area. It's near, I would say it's near the Post, which is like the indoor basketball facility over there.
Colossoville.
Exactly. It's little Japan over there, like Norman. That's the exact vicinity it's in, or relative vicinity. But yeah, 100 people there, kind of in the middle of a empty industrial neighborhood. Half of them milling around in front, half of them in the queue. But we need the people in the queue to be cooler than. They're there for a reason. They're there to get their ice cream. We would never be in a 50-person queue for ice cream. And there is our success. We walk by them, we get a little deferred coolness from the fact that we are unwilling to wait that long for ice cream.
Well, the ice cream lines in like the summer or any time are interesting, right? Because I read them as like, these are all people who don't like to drink. So like, if you're done with dinner, what are you gonna do? Like a bunch of my friends and kind of myself like went sober recently-ish. I still enjoy a beer for sure, but after dinner, they're like, I know this sounds lame, but can we get ice cream? Because I got nothing left. I can't go to the bar and I don't want to go home. Can we do something? And waiting online is cool because I'm excited to hang out with my friends, right? And I love ice cream, whatever. But that's the activity. So when I see swaths of people waiting in line for viral ice cream, I'm like, right, because they don't chuck beers down their throats. Like this is their night. This is their evening. It's kind of like lovely in a way.
This could be true.
Sugar,
true for
the sugar
some
intake.
people.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a whole bunch of people in NA queuing up, but I think there is a population of people, as you said, who don't want to go to a bar, so they wait for ice cream. I've never gone to AA or NA, and I don't really know what they talk about. And I was out last week, I think it was last week, and a group of people who were, I don't know if it was AA or NA, couldn't tell you. They came to celebrate a birthday party, and they seemed to get there earlier than other friends who were not sober. So it was a kind of a weird mix. Mm-hmm. But early on, they were all sober. They were all drinking, as you said, Coca-Cola, like other
seltzer waters.
Yeah, they all had drinks in their hands, just not alcohol.
Yeah.
Again, I've never been to one of the meetings, so I'm not telling anything like that. I'm not trying to
Don't shame
expose
them.
what's happening there. I'm not shaming them. I just have never been there, so I didn't know what was happening. And when they were talking, all they really discussed was like when they used to drink. Mm-hmm. It's like, is that how it works? It was all kind of
you're
like
a sports fan. You get this.
It was all kind of war stories. I just didn't know. I had no idea. And this guy was like, so I'm there with a whole bunch of fish scale in my pocket, dark times. And it's like, you can tell that was the happiest he's ever been.
Well, styles make fights because that's a specific kind of person, and I hear you on that. I've been to a couple of those meetings to support
was
friends.
just to be clear. This was not any sort of mockery. I was just coming from a place of full ignorance.
No, when someone's like, you know, when Jordan originalists show up, you can smell them from a mile away, right? And it's not necessarily the most fun time to have, especially being like, oh, that thing you're enjoying, I used to run that game. It's like, what you're doing now is nothing compared to what I do. It's like, thanks, Dad. You know, like, very cool.
Yeah, it was definitely an Unk moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was glazing his fish scale.
He was mogging in a different way, and maybe even the dreaded reverse mogging.
I guess I've only seen the cinematic version where, you know, they're raising their hand, they're acknowledging their dependencies, and it's this very sort of clinical environment.
Yeah.
Whether it was like, I don't know, Fight Club or wherever, you know, those kind of scenarios. And I just see this guy, he's there like, that's right, I woke up on a doorstop.
Well, it like everything, it depends on the personnel. And I've only been to like not many of these things, but like people share and people speak about what's on their mind. And it depends on how interesting or what people are sharing, right? If you're a good storyteller, oh, the meeting was great. If it's a bad storyteller, I'm like, hey, you know, like maybe next time we'll mix it up a bit. But I think I love this shit. I love all sort of support groups. I think they're good. Is it different than a running club?
Well, my main takeaway was actually not that I was mystified by what was occurring, but that it was clearly a heavy-duty social environment where
It is.
people were kind of dressed up, girls were, you know, looking kind of sultry, and it was like a night out. It was their time to shine. They were mogging, they were flexing, stunting. And it kind of goes to what you're saying, right? Is this a running club except for your mouth?
Yeah. I mean, what are people going to do if they don't enjoy end beers? I mean, after meetings, we went to get Chinese food and then ice cream. Like, this was years ago, you know, like before people had kids and couldn't even go to these meetings. They can't even go to these meetings now. But like, it's a tough scene if you don't do shots of Jägermeister and shotgun beers with your thumb. But it's, you know, you go to a show and then if the show ends at midnight, that's perfect. But if you
don't have a pocket full of raw fish, like pure fish scale,
right,
like crumbly gold shining in the light.
And remember,
if you don't have that, what are you supposed to do? Queue up for a triple chocolate entendre?
I mean, I don't think I saw pictures of these people online for these chocolate muffins, and they don't seem like AA or recovering soldiers from the scene. They seem like Asians who have Instagram accounts, you know, young Asian people who do this stuff because they're interested in stuff, and there isn't this sort of shame when you go to Japan, Taipei, Hong Kong, Japanclin in Industry City, as I found out. Did you know about this place?
Have we been there?
This is the first time I've been there. Me and you have been to Industry City quite a bit for work, for hanging, for shopping, whatever.
I felt like we've gone to a Japanese restaurant there, or maybe I didn't go with you. Maybe I went with family members.
Well, there's Japan Village, right? And then upstate.
That's the one I've been to.
Which is the Sunshine group that did Village Yokocho, Angel Share, all the Sunshine Marts and all that. So they have Japan Village. And then upstairs, it's a place called The Loft. Not Ann Taylor, it's just like The Loft. And inside The Loft, there's vendors. And one of the vendors is this place with a banner that said Japanclin. Had to go in. I was like, off the heels of the breakdancing debates, the heated breakdancing debates we were having online, I was like, I need to see this cultural appropriation for myself. Really nice people. They gave me a couple stickers. I chatted with them. I was like, this is a lovely store. Yeesh. It was weird.
Would you have appreciated it more if you had to wait in like a 30-person queue?
Well, it's that kind of place because across the way there was like, have you ever seen these like video game Pokemon on anime places that have like figurines that Nick Nurse would love? They're like not action figures or
it's
collectible.
foot fetish stuff?
They are like Takeshi Murakami kind of little figurines where they look like they're straight from certain animes that feature tentacles. But
That's the JD Vance stuff.
right. The Vanceaholics, right. So they had an event and there was like a line for people there, but it was like people I really enjoy that I'm kind of gravitate towards, like nerds who eat alone and have backpacks and are really online. I don't know. I'm getting back into like comic books and baseball cards, so you gotta bear with me.
You know, I feel like tentacle porn kind of gets a bad rap. It's always used to sort of make the Japanese seem like freaks. It's like, oh, you know, they make this immaculate sushi, but behind closed doors, it's all tentacle porn with them.
Is tentacle porn the 17th element of hip hop? Eighth.
You know,
I blew that joke.
It just I like that though. It just feels like it's a little bit. It's a little Japanophobic. It feels.
Wow.
Well, what it comes down to, Andrew, is it's shaming, and that's one thing we don't tolerate on the show. So, like,
Except
if
for
you
Jordan
are
Marshall,
into tentacle porn, like king or queen, go off. We're not gonna stop you.
I feel like the Japanese are like coming back. They were in the lead. They had a good 10-point lead throughout my childhood. And then the South Koreans like took over. They hit a bunch of threes and I'm like, yo, K-pop, you got the hot dogs on sticks everywhere. Kimchi is everywhere. Like you have celebrities crossing over to the West. And then in New York City, it feels like Japanese culture's kind of like draining some free throws, hitting some jumpers. They're making a comeback.
I'm going to ask you to continue with this question.
Because
Hold on. I've got a question
with
for you.
this question, my bad.
With this question.
Yes.
Did Koreans run out of talent?
Ooh. Kimchi is like a standalone, delicious, like craveable item, right? Like that thing is, they're a part of their culture. It's unbelievable, that invention. Everything else is like not quite for me. I don't enjoy the food that much outside of that item, which kind of permeates. But their stronghold was notable in the last decade, I think. Do they need to draft a Wemby? Is there another Psy out there to like kind of capture the moment? Because they might be Corey Brewer up in here.
I think you are a little too food centric.
Yo, agreed. I took it to a minor place.
I'm mostly thinking between K-pop and cinema, they're still doing pretty good. I mean, Parasite
That was a long time
winning
ago.
that was like 5 years ago, winning Best Picture. I'm not saying there isn't a little Japanese resurgence here. I'm just saying
In New York
between
City.
K-pop
Right.
and cinema, I think it's that the food has run out of steam.
Because what's that show on
And I'm
Netflix?
not talking steamed buns, Andrew.
Squid Game is coming back, right? Like that's a huge Korean phenomenon.
I'm saying I think Korea is still kind of in the pole position here.
I kind of agree with that. Even like Taiwan had a blip, but I don't know how well these restaurants are doing. But Korean stuff is still a major player, and their economy is good. There's still many Korean immigrants, like or visitors in the East Village, St. Mark's area, putting flowers where the old Starbucks used to be. It is an arms race, though, isn't it? Like in your neck of the woods, there's a little Japan, in Industry City, there's a little Japan. And I think you could still claim Japan has kind of a foothold in the East Village.
I'm with that. I agree. I think in terms of overall culture, Korea still kind of running the show here. But
Yeah.
absolutely true within the United States. You've got your K-Town stronghold.
Love it. Ugh, my
Like
post
that's a
victory.
I don't think there's a place as coherently Japanese, but enmeshed within other neighborhoods. Like, for example, on East 9th Street or like East 9th, there's little Japanese shops,
Yeah.
toy stores, restaurants, etc. Then you look over here in the Greenpoint vicinity, you've got, as I said, 50 Norman, there's little Japanese markets. So I think, yeah, I'm with you as far as the cachet for Japanese stuff.
Yeah.
Like, say, women's professional wrestling, very strong right
That's
now.
right. Shout out. Right. Yo, I was on the subway yesterday and I saw a cool looking person and they had huge Marcus Camby Asian letters tattooed on their arm. And I was like, that looks cool again. How is this possible? Because for 20 years, all we did was kind of mock this. Kenyon Martin, whatever. And then I saw like a 22-year-old with it, and I'm like, it looks good. Like, everyone, put your dumplings in here, kanji written on your arm, stat.
So you're telling people invest in, like, you're saying we're moving from the resurgence of tribal tattoos all the
Yep.
way over to the resurgence of Asian lettering.
Yep, especially like above the butt, the stamp. It looks good. I'm just like, yeah, this is like, if Zoomers are good at anything, they're just like, we like everything. So like, you can't tell what I am any given day. You have to take a broader picture. But I do enjoy the fact that they can take something that we deemed incredibly cringe and be like, we're good with it.
But this is also just a generational thing
Of
where
course. Yeah.
you don't have to create it. It's already there,
Yeah.
but it's been discarded and mocked. And you say, well, if you're older and you're square, you would hate this. So
Yeah.
therefore, it's cool.
Yeah.
What you tell me is cool absolutely isn't. So therefore, tramp stamps that have Japanese or Chinese lettering, yeah, that's the coolest thing on earth.
Yeah.
That I must have.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm always waiting for the resurgence of, like, remember the Designers Republic back in the day? Like, it was a design group that like did all the albums for Warp Records and all the things, and it was like the era of they did a PS1 game called Wipeout, and I thought it was kind of the Blade Runner vision of the future was at some point going to happen, and it kind of did, right? Between all these Japan villages, Koreatown, and tramp stamps. But I think of like the Zoomer interest, fascination with something like Aphex Twin. And it just went viral that he DJ'd a wedding. And the people who are at this wedding had to keep it secret for so long because of, like, I don't know, an agreement. But do people actually listen to Aphex Twin's music, or is it just that he made really amazing visual stuff with Chris Cunningham?
Personally, I think it's sort of the latter. I think the reference points are like, oh, look, it's all these crazy faces. Like,
Good
but I
logo,
don't know.
right?
Yeah.
But the logo is very Y2K. It's not anything that looks good. It's kind of gnarly in a way, you know?
Well, it's sort of that tribal tramp stamp.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think right. I mean, well, look, the cyclical relationship between music and culture and style, like, it's always going to have this return of things that have become grotesqueries over the years. And I mean, at this point, it's just faster than ever. It's like, oh, new metal is back. like new metal might already be gone.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that
for
happened for
sure.
a second, but yeah, I'm not even sure we're doing the whole rigmarole of a Limp Bizkit Corn revival. We just sort of acknowledged that it was there, absorbed it into
Bootcut
Balenciaga aesthetics, and kept it rolling.
Yeah, and this is what I mean by Zoomers will maybe be like, oh, I want to look like Fred Durst for a day, but tomorrow I'm going to look like Marilyn Manson. You got to take the overall picture here. But this ties into
All right, red fitted Yankees cap and out.
or new Fred Durst with like gray hair and old man stuff. But this ties into the time again thing, because if your partner was like, I got a big surprise for you at our wedding, I fucking booked Aphex Twin, you'd be like, excuse me, this reclusive genius? And then you'd be like, is he going to play the percolator or not? Because he's been here for the last 2 hours playing like these awesome, weird, esoteric techno beats. But my mom flew in from Rochester. Like, can we get the percolator, her favorite song?
She really wants to hear House of Jealous Lovers and the Electric Slide.
Right. But you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, this is cool. Aphex Twin has been DJing. It's getting late. Is he going to play something we can dance to? Time again. Third iteration, right?
It's funny. I was thinking about this idea of experiences and people queuing up in lines. I was talking to my friends about these railroad expeditions, that go cross country. And I saw one, it's like a reel about taking one across Canada, 96 hours, and you got this luxury suite, and you've got your bed, you can travel on the train, it's got an observation deck, it's got a restaurant, lounge, and all this stuff. I was like, that might be fun. I don't know if I want to be on a train for 96 hours, but okay, that's interesting. And I brought it up to a buddy without any clue that he had done this before. This guy from Queens, and he's like, yeah, I did that. I took a train from New York to the Bay Area. It's cross country, and he's like, you only need to do the Denver leg. Denver to the Bay, that's awesome. Rocky Mountains, beautiful. He's like, don't even bother with the rest of it. He's like, yeah, it's like 90 some hours. And he said, well, I didn't even get a sleeping car, so I was just in a chair the whole time. I walked around and I would sit in a chair. And that immediately made me go crazy. Just imagining 4 days without being prone, no being supine for 4 days, just in a chair or standing, and that kind of scrambled my brain.
I mean,
But
logistically, did he have 3 chairs that you can lie down on?
He didn't say that.
Okay.
He said he brought a bottle of vodka.
Okay, this changes everything. He's an alcoholic.
I don't know, just to get him through the trip. I'm not sure.
Right. Shout out to alcoholics.
But he's like, you've got like 3 kinds of people who are on these trains. You've got the elderly people. You've got foreign tourists who are like, this is a way to see America. I was like, who's the third group? And he's like, people who are on the no-fly list. It's like, oh, shit. I hadn't thought about all these logistics, but it totally makes sense. And the last thing that I thought was interesting was he said that everyone wants to talk to you because after a little while, there's nothing to do. So you're just insanely bored and craving human conversation. So he said when you're walking from one car to the next, you just have to avert your eyes at all times because everyone's there looking up expectantly, trying to make eye contact so they can say like, hey, did you look out the window? What'd you think of that thunderstorm? That's a nice that's nice mesa out there, don't you think?
This is a damn running club. It's like we're just bored to tears of everything. Let's put on all black, all Under Armour shit. Let's get together and walk to a bar. Oh, what are you? You're an investment banker? You live in Murray Hill, Turtle Bay. I live in Turtle Bay.
I don't know I guess going cross country in a train to someone who grew up in New York seems more tolerable.
It seems fun, to be honest. It depends on what train and what you're into. Like, God forbid you read a book or write a book. Ugh. But, enjoy basketball could be written on that train. And trains are beautiful. I hate to be that dude, but like this country is also beautiful, so I am not mad at this journey.
Right. I'm wondering if people who are used to taking trains around New York City find the concept of taking a 96-hour train ride more digestible than people who are used to being in cars. I couldn't say. Maybe it's the same thing.
There's this like, discussed meditative raw dogging on a plane where it's like, yeah, I can't really, I'm not pressured to be anywhere. I don't have to answer my emails if I don't care. I'm on a plane. There's no service, whatever. Like these 4 hours from New York to LA are my time, and it's like kind of a relief, right? Because you're kind of held hostage by the framing of the trip, and it's nice. And I can see the appeal of a train ride. And there's all this romantic stuff you can write about, like old films on trains, Korean films about one train being full of robbers and gangsters, and another train being full of rich people, and somehow they're totally separate. There's a farm on one of these cars.
What about the train to Busan?
Yeah, man.
It's full of zombies.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want to get on that zombie car. That's for sure.
That's the one to avoid.
Yeah. But the appeal is there for me if it feels like cleansing a little bit, unlike a car ride, like a road trip, because you have to be on point a little bit, and you have to pull over to eat stuff and go thrifting, find those rap tees. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go 2 hours out of our way to find a Nas rap tee in South Carolina. On a train, you're just like a captive audience.
I feel like I would be okay with the train, but the sleeping car is sort of a must.
You want to glamp. You don't want to camp.
I just don't want to be sleeping in a chair for 4 days straight.
Is there a weird scene, a Nick Nurse scene for these like cross-country private train car things? It seemed like there would be, like a trucker thing. But it's expensive, right?
It's expensive, and I don't know how often people are getting on and off. Like, it's not the same as when you take...
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if it's the same as when a train goes from, say, New York City to Montreal, and it stops constantly. Mm-hmm. It'll be like, oh, yeah, that train ride, it's about 12 hours.
Yeah.
If you took a car, it would take 6 and change. But yeah, that's going to be a 14-hour train ride because it stops in Albany, Schenectady, Utica, and so forth and so on. All the places to eat chicken reggies. Okay, you want a garbage plate? All right, you're going to go here.
They're
beef on weck.
They're attaching a beef on weck car to the train at Schenectady.
A great pie. Perfect.
Do they search you or make you go through a metal detector on the train? Is there kind of a TSA version of that? Can you carry drugs in a car?
I cannot recall being searched on a train.
Neither can I.
And I will say what has changed. I'm not sure about the last time I took one. It was a little while ago. So but you do have to show ID when you purchase it and on the train, which I kind of found objectionable. Like, fuck off. Like, seriously, what the hell?
Well, you need to show ID.
I can't sneak. I can't sneak down to Washington D.C. I can't sneak down to Philadelphia or Delaware. Like, right. You need to know that I'm there. Like, come on, man, that's some bullshit.
Oh, so you need to register. It's not like a club. You can't. You don't flash it. So online, you need to provide ID.
I can't. I think you could buy it without your ID, and then you had to show it on the train or something along those lines. I don't know.
If they're not keeping it in a database, it doesn't matter, right?
I just find it annoying. I'm just like, come on, man. If I'm taking a cab, I don't need to show ID.
I mean, it's really easy to identify who's in a cab, but like, yeah, I hear that. I don't know. Fair enough. That kind of privacy to me is
Also,
like whatever.
Buses, you never had to show ID ever.
No, I take a bus every day. No.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean
Buses,
long
or I'm
buses.
saying even Chinatown buses, they never ID'd you. I don't know. It just felt annoying. Like, oh, okay, let's make sure that's you. We're accounting for you going down to, I don't know, fucking Baltimore.
Hey, Baltimore catching strays, man. What's wrong with Baltimore? Shout out to
Nothing
Rod
wrong with
Lee.
Baltimore. I'm saying I want to go in anonymity to Baltimore. I want to be like a ghost, a wraith, a shadow, a phantom on my way to Wilmington, Delaware.
If you were having your wedding and you were like, yo, I'm going on a train to pick up a DJ, I'd be like, please don't pick up an esoteric electronic legend. Please pick up Rod Lee from Baltimore.
Let me check that ID. Okay, Rob Lee it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Famously, I think, on house arrest for a while. But
All right, maybe he shouldn't be ID'd.
he's probably fine now. How much would it cost to book him? Someone
Unless
book
he
Rod Lee,
did,
please.
unless he did something really bad.
Yeah. Freed Rod Lee, unless he did something bad. But
I'm not
until
totally
we know
sure what he did.
Free him. Man.
So here's a subject we should talk about, Andrew. We've beaten around the bush, no pun intended here a bit. We've talked about running clubs. You've been clawing at this topic, but we haven't reached there until now, due to my leadership. So there's a graphic I saw the other day, and it was about how couples meet in the USA. And it starts at 1950 and ends right about now. The last number on here is 2020, so I'm sure these trends have kept going. But it's basically how couples have met. So, as you would expect, there was some stability in things like family, neighbors, college over the years, and that's stayed about the same and tapered down a little bit. You had work in the bar. We're going up in the 80s and 90s as women were entering the workforce. You had through family, just a steady decline. Through grade school, steady decline. Through friends was really that was the hitter. It was a quarter of people in 1950 were meeting that way. Then it went up to 35% and kind of remained stable from 1960 until 2010, or maybe 2000, let's say 2005. And then that has plunged as well. Now it's 50%, maybe higher, 60 some percent is the internet. Just, rising up through the 2000s, spiking over 2010. Is there any way back from this, Andrew? Is it just going to be the internet forever?
Hopefully not, because in theory, this would produce a better society, wouldn't it? Because the internet takes a broader swipe at the population. So if you got stony, you could probably argue that we're cross-pollinating at a rate that would create more contributions to society because we're taking larger sample sizes. This is good, isn't it? Why would you want to date someone next door and have a family with them? Don't you want to be like, can you show me everybody in the world? Be like, oh, I get along with this person who doesn't even live next door to me.
I mean, I think that's true.
Just as an
I don't know.
exercise, right? Can I have more options than fewer options?
I mean, I think there's facts about that. That's true. Okay, you see the broad gamut of society, and you have a larger pool to date from. I mean, that's definitely preferable to your next door neighbor or someone you met in grade school, which is literally just a proximity thing.
Yeah, and it isolates ideas and money, right? Like Lauren Bush marrying Ralph Lauren's son to be Lauren. Shout out to Bol Bol.
But there is something a little bit grim about it. just being on the internet.
Are you going to drop the D bomb? Is this dystopian?
No, it's just an unk moment.
I mean, I can be swayed either way. So, like, state your case.
Well, I think it's that. I don't know. It certainly creates a wider dating pool, more availability, and it puts everyone on the same page. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one of those people who says, "Oh, well, it's created this idea of unlimited options, so no one's going to settle down."
No, you have your own feedback loop.
Yeah, I don't think that's like an issue to me, in terms of this idea that internet dating creates too many opportunities, that you don't take anyone seriously because there's always another person. I think that's a stage in life. I don't think that's like inherently tied to the internet. And I mean, yes, going back to if you were just, dating the farm girl next door, oh, that's the one. She's the only option. That's true. There are examples of that. But if you're in a place like New York or wherever, there's no shortage of people that you could meet. Like if you're going to be
if you
willing
drink,
to,
right? Like what if you don't? You're an ice cream head.
I just mean there are lots of young people here.
For sure.
Even if you have to meet them, queuing up for a quadruple chocolate.
Oh, I want it. Yeah.
Like this is the chocolate scone croissant muffin. There's 7,000 people lining up. You've got to find a wife there.
Let's take it to the scone zone. Yeah. Let's skip this line and go to the scone zone.
That's what they call it. When you're throating the croissant.
Shout out to RG3 who got fired a couple days after that photo.
Is that what they fired him for?
No, but cutbacks. He got let go, which was a shocker because he's good. But he'll do something.
We thought you were one of our guys. There's this photo that surfaced.
I mean, he's an edgelord, kind of, as we talked about last week. But yeah, he's no longer at ESPN. But go on. We'll talk about ESPN in a second. But
well, what I'm saying is the place to meet your spouse, your partner, is clearly a running club, Andrew. You've been dying to talk about running clubs. And now here we are.
All right, I got to do my stretches. I'm here to apologize for SantaCon. Hear me out. As the only people who get annoyed at SantaCon are the people who are trying to day drink on their own clock. Time again, reference again. But I think there's certain people at SantaCon who are annoying, but the act of SantaCon by itself is kind of a distillation of what everything is, right? Like it's a bunch of people who are interested in a thing who decide to come together to do the thing together. That may be drinking, that may be, it's kind of like a singles meet in reality. Same with these running clubs. They're meet and greets. They're speed dating. I used to be mad at SantaCon because it got in the way of me walking around the East Village. But that is just what the East Village is. It belongs to them, not me, right?
Well, SantaCon, just as waiting in a line for a quadruple chocolate or joining a running club, right, or being at Time Again Cafe, it's all finding your tribe, right?
Sure.
It's a signifier.
Yeah.
That if you are at this art gallery opening, you are cultured, you know what's up, you know who this person is.
You see someone with Asian lettering above their butt, and you're like, same.
You're like, boom. Yeah. But it's the self-segregation that is necessary to do, especially in like the dating world, we're not talking about AA or NA necessarily, but that happens there too.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And like the running clubs is this thing like that's where people are meeting in New York now. Well, sure, because it's co-ed. It's a co-ed activity with young people. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people meet at Equinox. I'm sure they meet at running club. People are going to meet anywhere, and it doesn't mean that they have to be like I'm not talking about just straight people. This applies to everybody. But running club is a group for everybody. So it's like, oh, are you into being healthy? Do you like running around New York? Is this a hobby that we have in common? Wow, we're allowed to talk.
Do you like good-looking people who are single? Right?
Do you like my abs and sex, perhaps?
Yeah. I mean, we're post-body positivity, which is sad because I think that was an amazing era, but another Ozempic effect happens. Everyone's good-looking. You don't even have to run in these running clubs. You can walk to the bar.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think is there people who want to run do a separate run, I believe, for a few of these. And then if you're just there for the meet and greet, you can do like a brisk walk to the bar that has been assigned. Time again, watch out. That parking lot's pretty enticing.
Yeah, that's dangerous to get the bridge runners coming right down there off Manhattan.
Yeah. The first month you're
They are-
like, please, no, this is a private party. The first 10 months in, you're just like, please, where are the running crews?
But they are in the direct crosshairs of the bridge runners.
Yeah, but that's a bad bridge to run across, right? I ruined my knees running across the Williamsburg Bridge. The Manhattan Bridge is kind of gnarly. Do runners do the Manhattan? They do all of them, right?
I think that's the deal with the bridge runners, right?
They just crisscross,
They
zigzag all
just
of them.
run bridges and shit.
That's loud. The air is bad. It's a poor quality. But, you get to hopefully walk a little bit of it and meet your partner for life.
Yeah. Ideally so. You know who else is partners for life, Andrew? Gershon Yabusele and the Sixers.
1 year deal, right? 1 year veteran minimum.
A 1 year veteran minimum, in which my understanding is that he had to pay out what he owed left to his European team, whatever the buyout was, out of that money himself, if that is correct, which would mean that he's basically paying for like $1 million. But he wanted to be back in the NBA, and this comes only weeks after he pronounced or proclaimed during the Olympics that he had no interest in the NBA was going to have to come to him.
Hey,
Well-
the hats are sold out. But if you want one, we might have a couple.
I
As
think that's a
Sixers
good.
fan. Yeah, what do you think?
I think it's just a good story.
He had a good
based
dunk
on-
over LeBron.
He did a good dunk against LeBron. He played well in the Olympics. You should be rewarded for that. I don't know that $1 million is a huge reward financially, but a chance to be back in the bigs, so to speak. I think that qualifies.
Are people choosing Philadelphia?
Well, my opinion on him going to the Sixers is more a commentary on their lack of a legitimate power forward, because that's the position he plays. So if you were offered a few minimum contracts, and they all are going to require buying out your European club's contract, so that's a constant. Maybe another team could have offered you a little bit more, but Philly's going to be on TV a lot. They're going to be a good team. They're going to be in the playoffs, and they do not have a power forward on the roster.
Who's on their depth chart currently, starting at the 4?
People were talking about Oubre starting at the 4, which is insane to me. That guy is not a power forward.
He's in their starting 5, though. I thought he was the 2. I thought it was Maxey and Oubre in the backcourt.
Well, I mean, it's all the same guys, right?
Right.
They might say, okay, no, actually, Caleb Martin is the 4. I'm like, well, he's
Yeah.
not a 4 either, and
I thought
he
he was
doesn't
the
play the
4.
4.
Right.
I mean, he didn't play the 4 at all last year, or at least barely. Oubre, again, is not a power forward. I don't know. To me, Yabusele seems like as good an option as anybody.
Oh my gosh. It's so I was thinking the other day when this news dropped that after all the words people have spent on Ben Simmons, on Sam Hinkie, on tanking, all the back and forth, Joel Embiid's legacy and career is going to come down to Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. I did not see that coming. This is it for
Yeah.
him. This is the team. He's done after this as a
I mean,
primary character.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got about a 4-year streak.
This is it, man. Yeah.
4-year stretch. That's it. I mean, there was a lot of time wasted. Part of that was because of his own injuries. Part of that was because of bad coaches, bad GMs. I mean, what's funny is I see people going back and saying, well, they rushed this rebuild. They should never have traded for Jimmy Butler. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
That was the one.
That was as close as they got. If they had re-signed Jimmy Butler and Simmons doesn't get hurt and Embiid is Embiid, that team wins 2-3 chips. That team is virtually unbeatable.
Tobias Harris, man, I hate to do it to him, but he took up a lot of real estate in this decade.
Yeah, they didn't rush the rebuild. They fucked the rebuild up by signing Tobias Harris. That was the error. It wasn't Jimmy Butler, the two-way superstar who can carry a team in the half court, who can play defense, who is unselfish, who becomes a basketball genius. That was not the issue.
Yeah. Who becomes
he was
like
a little too
celebrity afterwards in Miami.
No, it was Tobias Harris. It was you signed a top 150 player to a contract that was one of the biggest in the NBA. That was the problem. That bungled the entire thing.
But also, to support Tobias Harris here, you didn't surround him with Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Derek White. You can afford that Tobias error.
Yeah, they didn't build the Tobias team.
Right.
Like a championship Celtics team did.
Allegedly.
Well,
alleged champions.
Theoretical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going back to your point that you made before. This is now the team that, after 6 years of fucking up Joel Embiid's career with the presence of Tobias Harris, he's gone. And you've got Maxey, who's a young all-star. You've got Paul George, who is an older all-star. And what has bothered me about this offseason, up until the Yabusele move, which you might find funny, is that I'm not a fan of some of these veteran minimums that these guys they brought in. I'm not a big Drummond guy. I don't really like Oubre. I'm not a fan, even though Oubre got more money. And, Reggie Jackson is not interesting to me at all. At all. They brought in a bunch of dudes I just don't care about. I don't want to watch play.
You don't love Eric Gordon?
Eric Gordon, he's fine. Whatever. I'm not interested in these guys being on the floor. Yeah. I'm not interested in them being on the floor when the Sixers are at a crucial moment of the season. But I do like Yabusele because at least there's upside. It's using this number of small contracts and saying, let's throw some shit at the wall. Maybe Yabusele actually can knock down threes at a 40% clip. And he can rebound a bit. He can
He's
play some
28.
Defense.
Yeah, I know. We've seen him before. He's not a mystery wrapped in an enigma. He's who he is.
But he shot well in Europe. That to me is the biggest issue.
Totally different game. The FIBA game is different, right?
It's true, but he shot really well in Europe. And
sure.
if he can be a 4 who rebounds some, shoots some threes, plays some defense, cool. But this is what I mean. Give me some of those guys. A few players with some upside. I don't need to know what Oubre is capable of. We know he's one of the worst shooters in the NBA. Reggie Jackson, we know he's a terrible shooter.
Oh, to your credit, Yabusele has played 74 games in the NBA, both with Boston in 2018 and 2019. He wasn't good, but to your point, maybe we haven't seen him.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. And I wish they would go inside Bruno Caboclo too. Fuck it. Bring in some of these guys who washed out of the NBA, who've been playing overseas. Maybe they're better shooters now, and give them a shot. I just don't care about Reggie Jackson. I don't care about Kyle Lowry. I don't care about Andre Drummond. I don't care about Oubre. I don't care about Kenyon Martin Jr. I'm not saying these guys are bad. They just aren't the pieces that the Sixers need to put them ahead. A few of those guys, they can stick around. The Aaron Gordons, okay, they can flesh out the roster. But I'm just hoping that Daryl Morey does aggressively use these roster spots to keep trying to upgrade. And if Yabusele can be a contributor, amazing. If Reggie Jackson can't, then get him the fuck out of there and bring in someone who can.
It sucks because they had the guy I wanted, B-Ball Paul. Like, just keep him. But he got paid. But yeah, I agree with you. You gotta isolate. You gotta take a flyer on someone like Hartenstein, being like, he's good. We know he's good. Mm-hmm. He's young. He might turn into a player we cannot afford. But those are the players that are interesting.
You know, we just have not seen Daryl Morey aggressively churning through roster spots to find contributors, to find guys who are undervalued, who are cheap, who are in Europe. And I'd just like to see him do that more. That's my main critique of him as the GM, is that he just hasn't been active enough.
Melton was cool.
No, but Melton's a good player. He's made some good moves. He's made some good trades. It's that back of the roster that is just sort of sat there, whether it was finding, two-way players and turning them into contributors, hasn't happened at all.
I know. He went stars and scrubs. I would venture to say Daryl Morey's tenure and I'm biased because I enjoy his ideas, but this is what he promised, right? Like 2 years in 2022, being like in 2024, I will have Joel Embiid, I will have an all-star guard, and I want Paul George. He kind of made it happen under the radar. Like, this is his plan.
I think that's true, and I would say, as far as the big picture stuff, Morey has gotten it right. He traded damaged goods and Ben Simmons, got James Harden, got a few years out of him, turned that into Paul George. The big picture stuff, I think he's done an excellent job. He drafted Tyrese Maxey in the second half of the draft, and he has turned into an all-star player. Really has nailed big parts of this. I just wish he had cultivated some talent or focused on that in a way that they had some rotational guys that I had some faith in, because I just don't care about Oubre or Eric Gordon or Andre Drummond or a lot of these vets that keep flowing through their system, whether that was Patrick Beverly or whoever.
And we were talking about dating and the whole field. I don't think there's that many interesting players. I bet you if we tried, we could probably name the dozen of them. And they're not really available, right? Like, of course you want B-Ball Paul. Everyone kind of wanted B-Ball Paul, and he gets up getting paid. So you kind of, that's when the Tobias Harris contracts happen, being like, well, he's an NBA player, whatever, And I don't think every year there's a Grayson Allen or DiVincenzo or a Pashevsky, right? Like, those are the players I'm interested in getting on my team. You just can't get them because everyone else wants them too.
Totally fair. And I'm not saying, why didn't he just nail the second round of the draft repeatedly?
Right. He kind of does more than anybody, right?
Why aren't you finding stars at the number 52 pick?
Right.
Other people have done it. Where's your Jokic? Where's your Draymond Green? I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
I only wish there was more effort to do that.
Yeah. Like
it
the
also
Bruce
is tied
Brown
in
Denver, right?
Well, it also was tied into them, now having B-Ball Paul gone, having Charles Bassey gone, having Champagny gone, having Isaiah Joe gone.
I like those guys.
Those guys are NBA players, and they were on the Sixers. They didn't get a chance to play, and they were replaced by veterans in many cases who aren't particularly good. But again, I'm saying I like the Yabusele pickup for that exact reason. It's a flyer. I want them to give more flyers, because if they can find a couple guys who actually are good and are better than the Reggie Jacksons and the Eric Gordons and the Andre Drummonds, then this team can be really formidable.
I just want to be devil's advocate here. We always talk about, and I agree with you, but we always talk about on this show about finding a market inefficiency. Like, what aren't people seeing that you think you see? And that's what makes the GMing role so interesting, and that's what makes Morey great. And maybe what he's saying is, you guys are overvaluing this young painter because of potential. I'm going to pick these blue chip middle painters who are in the middle of their career, and I know the return on them, and the return on them is good. And on the basketball court, if you were playing the Sixers in a tense game in the first, second, third round, and you see Reggie Jackson coming on the court as opposed to like an unproven but exciting young player, I'd be like, fuck, Reggie Jackson's here. He's been here. He's good enough. As opposed to a kid being like, you haven't done anything yet, man. You know, like seeing Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Eric Gordon on the floor is like unsexy to every viewer's eyes. But in terms of a game, it might be like, fuck, these veterans who have all been all-stars before, most of them, are all on the court now with Joel Embiid. Like, this is really annoying.
I think there's truth to that, and that's part of being a contender, the immediate gratification. We need a guy who can play right now versus developing talent.
Right.
And I don't know if this is a Morey thing or it's a Nick Nurse thing or it's a Doc Rivers thing where Nick and Doc just aren't that into playing young guys. They don't do it. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to win right now, I think your point about veterans being better in the short term is true. It just is. You know,
just win me this next 5 minutes.
Reggie Jackson is going to be better than Jared McCain this year.
For sure.
Just because Jared McCain is a child who is coming out of Duke where he played one season. I mean, he's going to be 21 midway through next season at like the All-Star break. He's young. He has no experience. He's going to make mistakes. I just wish they had a chance to give these guys. I wish they'd taken the opportunity to give more young guys an opportunity to get into the mix. You know, I think someone like, for example, Ricky Council 4, I think he can play, but he gets no meaningful minutes. And they played Tobias Harris instead. And I'm like, come on, man. This guy only played under 300 minutes last year, and most of it was garbage time. And he showed that he can score. He showed that he can shoot. And you had Tobias out there, like, not into that. But again, maybe we'll see them do more like that.
Yeah, it messes me up, especially the idea of potential and the idea of actuality. Because we're in a chat with our buddy Isaac, and that's one of my favorite chats because we go through the draft like with a fine-tooth comb. And we're all like, yo, Josh Minot is very fascinating and he could be a great player. He just doesn't play, right? And like our perception of a player like Minot is like, yo, this guy has so many likable things about his game. I think every team should consider rostering him, as opposed to him stepping on the court in a tough game, being like, you're gonna put Minot on the court, okay? As opposed to Eric Gordon, who's like, that's Eric Gordon, god damn it.
Well, right. I mean, this ties in with our conversation about, restaurants that say, well, we don't actually want to be cool anymore. That was fun for a while, but now we have bills to pay. We're taking down our outdoor dining outhouse. Margins are pretty slim. So, yeah, we're not going to actually try anything too inventive. We're going to have a steak tartare on the menu now, and we're going to serve some burrata with tomatoes.
Yeah. And it's brutal to watch Andre Drummond pull down 14 rebounds when you need him to, but he can do that.
Yeah, not everyone has to have like the free Darko worldview of like, all right, we're talking about Anthony Randolph. Like, where are the cool, weird freaks?
Yeah,
like, where's Poku? Why won't the Sixers sign Poku? Like, dude, I would do it in a heartbeat because that's the kind of basketball fan I am.
And he's
but
gone.
I get it.
Yeah, he signed to the EuroLeague. I did not know he had been in the NBA for 4 years. I'm like, he's a sophomore, right? Like, he has hardly played. I'm like, yo, dude, he's played a long time.
Dude, free Poku till it's backwards.
I love Poku. I love his bouncy game. I love his weirdo stuff. But, we're in the era of affability, and he does not seem like a player people enjoy traveling with on a train.
I don't know. I can't say. He's definitely on the no-fly list.
He's weird. I love him. He's weird. But do you want to chill with him or, like, your Catholic school buddies?
Or Eric Gordon.
Right? Eric Gordon's surly, but he has had like a remarkable career. Shout out to this dude who has had like a full life lived in the NBA.
You know what? I will say, I can't think of many more players that I identify more as a sourpuss. Like
Okay,
Eric Gordon, that sourpuss ass player.
yeah, we're not talking about Draymond Green, who's just angry. We're talking about like an acerbic kind of like sucking your teeth kind of guy, right?
Also Reggie Jackson.
Yo, remember that he tried to start a fight with, I forget what team, Oklahoma City, I think, and Steven Adams, who was like the most lovable dude, was like, Reggie, what are you doing? Like, we were boys. Like, these were your teammates. He had to like hold him back a little bit. It's like, dude, what is happening?
Schroeder is pretty surly.
I don't know. He's changed though. I think FIBA success has like changed his vibe, but he used to be kind of more acerbic.
He definitely was. I mean, Beverly's a different kind of player. That's his
Yeah.
brand. It's not the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like,
the Sixers are. Oh, they're really annoying. I hadn't
I'm
really
not a fan.
considered the level of surliness on that team when it's like Embiid, Lowry, Reggie Jackson, and Gordon, like just salty.
I mean, even last year when they played the Knicks, I'm like, I wanted them to win for you, but I'm a Knicks fan, and I'm like, hey, if they die, they die. Usually with Ben Simmons, I was like, I kind of love the Sixers, so like, the Knicks aren't going to go far. Might as well be the Sixers. But last year, I was like, fuck this team.
Yeah. I mean, Tobias a little surly too, but different kind of surly. More of a.
Oh, that's melancholy. That's sad.
I was about to say it's more of a depressive vibe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the Sixers. I mean, McCain and Maxey are joyful, right? Like when McCain becomes good, and I think he will be in the next 2 years. Like that's a backcourt that I will love completely. But
And I think Embiid goes both ways on that, where he's just a big personality because he can be joyful, he can be exuberant, he can be shit talking, he can also be really surly. So he goes, as Embiid goes the team. But yeah, the backcourt, they're got some good smiles back there.
yeah.
So I saw a post that you had on Twitter, and I think we were talking about never good, always terrible. This is about Caitlin Clark, I believe, and the WNBA Rookie of the Year debate with Angel Reese, and you were taking shots at rebounds. You said amongst the least meaningful statistics are rebounding.
I stand by
Explain,
that.
Andrew. Explain.
If we broaden the statistical pool to like 14, 15, 16, whatever, it probably caps out at plus minus, which probably means less than rebounds. We're talking efficiency, adding on turnovers, offensive rebounds counts. I would even put deflections in there. All these stats matter, and I'm a huge Josh Hart fan, and he's an offensive rebounder. But rebounding in general, I feel like within the construct of a 24 game, in my humble opinion, is not the most coveted skill set on a basketball court. Of course, it can help you win a game if you fight for a 50-50 ball. But in general, we've seen, especially it started happening in plain sight when Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double. Rebounds are complicated. I always want them to add a difficulty metric,
They do that if you
sometimes they do, but that's an
you get
advanced stat.
Right. I was going to say, if you went to NBA.com, got under the hood,
Yes.
you could find contested rebound leaders that would give some indication of whether they had to battle for them or they were just at that position at the right moment at the right time.
I've watched many Chicago Sky games. Angel Reese is a dog. I'm a fan. She is probably a Hall of Famer because just with her skill set of rebounding, she's going to be an all-star every year, I think, and represent Team USA. That said, not all of her rebounds are the contested ones. She knows where to go, which is a skill for sure. But within the context of the 12, 13, 14 or so stats, I think rebounding, scoring, and offensive rebound, so points per game, are the ones that kind of will always gravitate towards the bottom of that tier.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about rebounding because a lot of it's based on how many minutes you play.
That too.
Right.
Rebound percentage is better than rebounds.
Yeah, and your position. If you are playing power forward for 34 minutes a game, you are probably going to get a bunch of rebounds, and it'll look as if you are an excellent rebounder. But you might not be that good. As you said, I think it's more that there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to rebounding, right? I think if you look at like contested rebounds per game for the NBA, if we want to talk about that stat, this is just per game. Anthony Davis, Jokic, Mitchell Robinson, Clint Capella, Sabonis, Mark Williams, Gobert, Embiid, Nurk, Jalen Duren, Drummond, Jared Allen, Ayton, Hartenstein, Zubac. It's just fucking centers. It's just centers. They're down there. There's another player next to them. They're fighting for rebounds.
Yeah.
That doesn't really tell us much other than that you play center.
Right.
On the other hand, if you looked at a stat like distance for rebounding, that gives you another indication of what a player is good at, or at least what their defensive strategy is, right? Because you have guys like Giannis or Tatum or other sort of more mobile fours who get rebounds that may not be contested, but they're going further for them, which is another skill, and being able to locate the ball and having the speed and length and athleticism to go and get it. So, like, I think it's mostly that we aren't adequately talking about rebounds right, and it may not be interesting enough to do. It may not be.
No.
It may not have enough nuance to say, okay, let's get in the trenches with rebounds and let's talk about like how this guy's rebounds are really valuable. I think that stuff is interesting. It just may not be for like public consumption.
Yeah, and I think good NBA front offices do that as well, right? They're like, okay, if we're going to sign this guy for X cap space, like what kind of rebounds does he get? And then at the end of that conversation, it's always helpful to be like, but is he a dog or not? Right? Because Josh Hart, a dog. Isaiah Hartenstein, a dog. Precious Achiuwa, probably more of a dog than Walker Kessler, who's very tall and pretty good. But, you went down the list of those centers who excel at contested rebounding. And, you mentioned players like Anthony Davis in the same breath as Jalen Duren. Two completely different players, right? Who probably pull down contested rebounds at comparable rate to be in the same conversation.
Yeah, even though they're 15 slots removed, it's like a rebound and a half.
Yeah,
like per
exactly.
game, maybe two.
Yeah. And, like a player like, I don't have to say this, Anthony Davis is valuable in a way that Jalen Duren will never be valuable. And, we saw Rudy Gobert, who is a Hall of Famer and kind of transverses two different eras. But in 2024, he gets kind of relegated, maybe injured, in Olympic play. And that's interesting because not only does he rebound, he protects the rim and is a fantastic close to the basket scorer. Like, those are three things that are valuable. I think Angel Reese is going to be an extraordinary WNBA player for her entire run, but she's not a notable around the rim scorer, and she doesn't necessarily protect the rim that well. So every statistic is valuable. The least valuable statistic, in my opinion, defensive rebounds, is still a huge asset to your team. If she could just add a wrinkle, it would bring her up to the level of like below Caitlin Clark.
Right. Well, yeah. I guess the rebounding discussion is interesting because you really have to be able to do it as a team.
It's incredible.
It is necessary to be a good defensive rebounding team. It's not as important as being, say, a good scoring team if you want to win a title. Like, it's possible to be a mediocre rebounding team and have great success. You can do it. But it makes life harder. You have to be really good at other stuff.
Right.
So what are you sacrificing?
Right.
Who are you putting on the court? And what does that allow you to do where you're sacrificing the ability to keep the other team off the glass, right? So I look at someone like Angel Reese, and you say, defensive rebounding is important. It's a team game, it's a team effort, and that's why someone like Josh Hart is really valuable, because he gives you defensive rebounding from the 2 or 3 slot.
Right.
And he gives you offensive rebounding from a guard spot. And he does it every year. So the question I have for you is, you are opposed to the concept of the hot hand. You don't believe in it. Do you believe some players have like a nose for the ball?
I gotta backtrack. I think what people see, they think is the hot hand, but that's a different phenomenon. So I have a problem with the language, not that it happens. I think players shoot and get a lot of shots in a row and then don't get a lot of shots in a row. It's just kind of like flipping a coin. You can get tails like 12 times in a row, maybe. Is that a hot coin? A lot of gamblers think so. I'm less inclined to. So I think certain players, we lived through Amari Stoudemire, right? That guy tried so hard. He put in all the effort, but he just didn't quite have a sense of space as a rebounder that another player does. So I do think there's players who understand where rebounds go more than other players. And, like Galen Clark is averaging almost 6 rebounds a game from like a diminutive guard standpoint. That's a nose for the ball as well.
Yeah, I don't know if hot hand is the right comparison as much as the clutch gene, right? Mm-hmm. Because the hot hand, I do believe in it more than you do.
Sure, I love it. Yeah, that's great.
Like, without even
that's great,
having,
man. Great.
without even embarking on that.
Yeah, change my mind. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this, and I will never change your mind. I just think in the same way, like, there are times when you're not warmed up, you don't feel good.
Sure.
There are times when you're tired, you don't have your legs, you're shooting too much with your arms, your elbow is kind of wobbling. And then I think there are times when, like, you feel really good. The ball's leaving your hand just right. It's not sticking on the side of it at all. Like, your form feels excellent. Your mechanics are there. And, maybe in the NBA, these guys are far more attuned machines than, say, myself. But
is this flu game erasure?
But the cold hand,
the hungover hand.
But to me, there are times when it's not even about being like mentally locked in. It's like the ball just is leaving your hand and going where you want. It's like it's not. You're extremely comfortable. And again, this is coming from someone who there are times I'm like, oh man, like my shoulder is kind of sore, my legs aren't warmed up enough, or like I'm exhausted. I'm just hoisting this shit at the rim now. I'm not getting quite as open as I want. I was playing last week and I was getting open looks early in the game. I felt really good and just like knocking down open threes. It's like, oh, I'm hot. It's like, well, no, I'm just peak. Does that make sense? And I know that may be totally different from these guys who are in incredible shape and, but I get that idea where you just feel as good as you can shooting the ball and you're really, you're taking it with confidence. You're stepping into your shot. There is a mental component, but it is also physical. Like the ball is just leaving your hand the way you want it to. It's going where you want.
Have you seen those people in Vegas casinos who like pee while they're doing slots? And they're just like, I feel great. This is going to get hot. If I give up my seat and someone sits down, like they're going to benefit from my hard work. So I'm just going to piss right here. It's insane, right? And like all the things you're talking about to me are interesting and exist in gambling like crazy. It's a religion.
Look, I get that. It's like there are times when people are watching games and like, well, I got to wear this shirt and I got to sit in this chair.
Dude, Trump just had a quote with that, right? It's like the stock market. When people think the stock market, think that I'm not going to be president, the stock market tanks. When they think I am going to be president, the stock market goes up. And this is an hour, minute-to-minute thing. It's incredible. It's gambling.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Not to take this on a huge political tangent. I just have not been paying that much attention to your boy Donald. Someone said he's like self-sabotaging. Is that true?
Is he tanking?
Is he? No. I was like, is he going for like a higher draft pick?
Is he actually playing to win? No, he's not. He's just old and as stupid as he's ever been. He's not declining. He's been stupid for 50 years, 60. As long as we've ever followed him, he's been the dumbest man in the celebrity world. So I think that's mental gymnastics, being like, well, he has judges in place to steal certain morsels here or there from swing states. I think he's trying really hard to win. I think he's in Four Seasons corner. He's run out of talent.
Was just checking, seeing what was going on with that. I was like, is he tanking? Is he going Sam Hinkie on us?
If you were a self-loathing Democrat or a Republican, that is the first place you should go. He's doing this on purpose. This is intentional. That's it, right? Like, if you are going to vote for Kamala Harris but enjoy talking shit about Kamala Harris, that's the first place you'll go. Like, but Kamala's only winning because Trump is tanking.
Well, it's also, does he really want to go back and be president, or do he just want to beat Joe Biden?
He wants to stay out of jail, so he's worried. So he's alluded to, like, they want to put me in jail. I'm like, you better become president, dude. He's not going to go to jail, but his stupid mind thinks he might.
Look, if he's not going to imprison Hillary, I'm not interested.
You can't put an ex-president in jail ever.
Hillary never won. She can be incarcerated. That's my one agenda. Look, I will vote for whoever is willing to actually put Hillary Clinton in jail. And honestly, I don't believe Trump. He had a chance and he didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Don't believe Trump. Of course you shouldn't believe Trump. Chelsea Clinton,
I wanted to believe that he would put her under the jail, and he never shackled her.
Chelsea Clinton went to Brown when I was at RISD, and I think I saw her once in person. I didn't really venture that far up the hill in my 4 years there, but a lot of my friends, drunken nights, were like, I need to marry into this power family. Let's go to the Brown campus and try to find Chelsea Clinton, where I'm going to roll up to her with Secret Service all around and be like, sup, hey ma, And I'm like, what would she ever have in common with you? You drink beers and black out.
A tramp stamp.
Yeah.
A tramp stamp with Chinese lettering.
Yeah, that was already over. You drink beers and black out and listen to Aphex Twin. She's trying to find Ralph Lauren's son, who was way too young by then. But anyway, it's like a whole different scene up there, man. So, like, you should log on to the internet, which didn't even exist at that time, and you'll have a better shot.
Wise words, Andrew. Wise words.
I'm saying. Yeah, she's waiting for ice cream. She's not pounding Old English 40s.
But then, oddly enough, you married into the Clinton crime syndicate and were responsible for the death of, what's his name? Vince?
Vince.
The guy
Vince
they murdered.
Carter?
Vince. It was Vince Carter. The murder of Vince Carter
Vince
and Danny
Williams.
Ainge.
Yeah, that famous picture of Hillary staring down the hallway of that busted ass kitchen. Off camera, there's a ton of peaches. That's all I'm saying.
She's just staring at you over the sink eating
That's right.
stone fruit.
They had to Photoshop that out.
Just incredible gluttony.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Meaningless stats. Aren't they all sort of meaningless? Like the ones that we've become accustomed to on box scores, in the same way that rebounding,
Which is only 9 or 10, right? Like,
it's like you look at
right.
assists and you're like, okay, well, we kind of know that those are fraudulent now. Steals, I think they're legit at this point. Blocks are legit. You can't really take much away from blocks or steals at this point. I know people could say that they're hunting for those stats or they're scheme based, but those are still tough to fake. But they're also kind of rare. Points? How legit are points?
Points per game, not so good. Points, a little bit better. True shooting, kind of cloudy. They're all fallible, and you need a combination of the interesting ones, right? But if you're a unitasker, you're an ice cream maker in a kitchen. You take up counter space, and you produce one thing that we love. But maybe if we're having a bunch of beers, we don't care about ice cream. So, like, if you excel at a stat that is cloudy, like assists, points per game, steals, blocks, you're LeBron James.
Right. I mean, points per game are the least cloudy in terms of perception.
Oh, they're so
And,
cloudy. Yeah. I mean, Kobe Bryant, right? He does the poorest when we do this exercise because he takes many shots, and his foul calls and his work at the line is error-based and cloudy.
Let me say this, though, to Kobe's credit, is that was he a chucker? Yes. Him, like the god, the logo, Allen Iverson, his chucking is also based on that era. And he wasn't wildly inefficient, just as AI was not wildly inefficient, because everyone was fucking inefficient.
This is in
That
our
was
book, The
how-
Joy of Basketball.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was the dead ball era. And, you know, every team wanted to have a guy who was their primary scorer. They'd put a bunch of burly defenders on the floor, your George Lynch's and your Tyrone Hills, and you'd say, all right, Kobe, all right, T-Mac,
McKee.
all right, AI, all right, Jerry Stackhouse, get out there and you do all the scoring. Everyone else, they're kind of not going to. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll hit an open jumper once in a while, or they'll get an offensive rebound.
Since
Stats are weird from back then.
Yeah, and since we wrote the book, I'm kind of selling AI a bit. He's the god culturally, don't get me wrong. He is when the NBA started, but there was a debate on my Twitter feed about Kyrie versus AI, and I thought that was appropriate. And that was pretty heated, you know. A lot of people were talking about ball handling and the duties of a type of guard like that in this era versus AI's era. And it's a pretty decent debate. But I think that's the right one to have. Not Kobe. I think Kobe is probably a few tiers above Kyrie. So eras are weird. But Kobe was a good passer. Kobe was a decent rebounder. I think he was a solid defender. Kobe was a really good player. He was a top 25, 30 player.
I knew you were going to end with a top something, and I was wondering how egregious you would get.
I'm steadfast in that because there's a lot of amazing players. He's probably ahead of Hakeem Olajuwon, who is a god-level player. Like, these are amazing players.
It's like, are you going to go with a top 150 player? Like, where's Andrew going with this one?
Hakeem and Ewing and Kobe. I think that's the tier that I have all those three guys in.
I mean, to me, like, this brings us up to a kind of more contemporary discussion that I've been wanting to have. I forgot to
Let's go.
bring it up last week. Is that you have some of these guys who are kind of in the same age bracket, kind of in the same statistical category, but there's really different perceptions about them and their future. And some of this is based on injury or suspensions, you know, things like that. But you look at this group, right, and you've got these young guys who score, let's say, around 25 a game. They're the primary scorer for their teams. But none of them have made this leap to the SGA category where they're hyper efficient.
Are you talking about like Zach LaVine or something?
Well, I mean, Zach LaVine's a little older.
Okay.
I'm talking about some guys. I'm talking about like Ant, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got LaMelo, and you've got
Is Booker in there? Too old?
Booker's too old.
Mm-hmm.
There are these guys that we're still figuring out where they are in this NBA hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got LaMelo. Maybe Anthony Simons would go in there. Maybe, but he's a little older too.
Mm-hmm. Is
But
Brunson
the three,
in there?
the three guys that really stick out to me are Ja, Ant, and LaMelo. And maybe Zion, right?
Thin Zion or
and-
thick Zion?
Just you're right. Large Zion or slender Zion. But those four guys, I kind of, RJ Barrett not in that conversation. Because these guys are high draft picks, huge expectations, and I think the perception right now is that Ant is, bearing down on a top 5 spot in the league. And I'm like, I don't see it.
No.
And there's a perception that LaMelo is kind of a squandered talent, that he's lost at sea. And maybe some of that with Ja. And I look at him like, I think Ant is the third best out of those three players.
It's so interesting, that grouping, because they're all nuts in a wonderful way, right?
And I like all of them, to be clear. I really do enjoy Ant. I think he's a great personality, great scorer, has the potential to be awesome.
Yeah.
But I just think LaMelo and Ja are extremely good.
Yeah, LaMelo is fascinating because he's been injured, so we don't quite know, and Ja has had his share of missed games. But LaMelo is like a Joker style weird, which is like a different weird than like Zubaz and Kenny Powers weird, which is what Anthony Edwards is. Like, it's a more accepted weird. The LaMelo kind of pre-Brat summer weirdness is more red flag raising because it's antisocial. This is what I associate with it, like the Joker kind of stuff. I'm like, this is a question I have grown to ask more and more. Is like, does this player love to play basketball because it's a really difficult thing to get into, or is he just great at it? And those things are intrinsically tied, but I wonder if LaMelo would care if he just made his money in Charlotte and then like enjoyed a really full life off of it. Ja Morant's different. I think Ja Morant is desperate to gain a certain respect that those two aren't interested in. Ja Morant is annoying that way, and that's what makes him kind of Jadakiss cringe. But like, yeah, this is do or die time for all three of those players. Edwards has a bit of a runway, but LaMelo and Ja, if they don't have a good season this season, they will, I think, suffer a perception issue that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's wrong to put Ant above them based on what's occurred over the last few years. It's justified. Ant's team went to the Western Conference Finals.
He's got the best shooting big on his team. The
Timberwolves were really good. They were the number one
team.
Seed, I believe, right? No, maybe the 3, but they were at the top of the West.
In my humble opinion, would have beat the Celtics, but just didn't get it done. Which is
extremely good team.
Yeah.
Ant is the face of it, even though they have other players who have been all NBA in the past. Ant is the face of it. He's a great scorer. He gives Jordan originalists a thrill, like look at his face. He might be Michael Jordan's son. It's like I get it.
Yeah.
I just think we're kind of underappreciating how good LaMelo and Ja have been when they're on the court. And yeah, they've got to prove that they can do that over a sustained period of time and kind of reclaim their spot. It's true.
Availability is a skill, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I was just looking at these guys. I'm like, the perception is very different, but they're all, to me, at least in the same tier at a minimum.
I think in a trade, all three of them would probably equal market value.
I don't know. I think because of the absence and the injuries, I don't know what it would take to get Ant.
5 draft picks in Julius Randle. 5 unprotected number 1 picks in Julius Randle.
You're talking about a Mikal Bridges package.
No. Couldn't possibly. But yeah, I don't think trades look that different. That's maybe what I'm saying. It's like, if you want one of those guys, you're going to have to pay as much for LaMelo Ball as Anthony Edwards, and maybe you don't do it, but that's his cost.
It's possible. The other guy that we mentioned this, and same deal, is Zion. Like, healthy Zion, also better than Ant. Probably. He's got some weirdness to his game, some foibles with his defense and, other issues, lack of spacing. But Zion is a force of nature when he's healthy. Except he's never healthy. A unique force of nature, right? Because he can kind of play 1 through 5. He's kind of an unlocked passer. Sees space great. Sees the speed of the game great. I think he knows when to accelerate and decelerate, like at a really entertaining level. I heard he got skinny though. A picture popped up on social media of his camp, I think, laying off the jambalaya. And how could you? Because the food in New Orleans, however much I don't like that brass band ass town, the food is delicious. Jesus, it's good. It is really delicious.
Yeah, oh my God. Those roasted oysters, get out of here.
every time I come back from there, even if I've only spent 2 nights, it's never fast enough. Like, I could live down here. I'm like, no, you can't.
I don't got that dog.
Like, I can't live down here. What am I going to do?
Eat. I mean, has he been derailed by the city in which he lives? And this happens all the time, right? Like sometimes players are distracted by South Beach, New York City, whatever. Chris Webber had to go to Sacramento to really become amazing, right? Does Zion City kind of do him no favors? I mean, we're post body positivity at this point.
Well, I feel in some ways they've done him no favors because of the roster they've built around him.
That's true too. Yeah, I had someone on Twitter argue with me that their 2 wings were untouchable. I'm like, dude, they're not a good team. Trade one of those wings for some help with Zion.
Which ones?
Trey Murphy and the other one I'm always spacing. They're both tall and good.
Oh yeah, Herb Jones.
Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, yeah.
I mean, to me, they're untouchable only because those 2 guys in Zion make sense to me.
Yeah, but they make sense.
Ingram doesn't make sense.
Right, but they get swept in the first round anyway with Ingram. So those 3, like Ingram's just going to go. He's not going to get you a return. Does he have a team yet?
He's still the Pelicans.
Oh, it was a trade. He wasn't a free agent?
Right.
Okay. I mean, you're not good with those 4, so you could just be not good again.
I just view them as a classic too many chefs in the kitchen team. I'm like, I want to see Zion with those 2 wings, with a stretch 5, with a floor spacing.
It's a lot, dude. Like everyone wants that shit.
Sure. But I'm saying they have 3 of the 5.
Many teams have 3 out of 5 teams, right? I hate to be difficult about this, but like,
yeah, but they don't have a Zion.
But to the topic, Zion isn't unique yet. Like he can't stay on the court, right? Like,
well, that's the issue.
I mean, that's a big issue. If Joel Embiid goes down with another injury and loses 50 games off the season, like that's not good.
I just feel like you could take players who are in Zion's stardom tier, and you couldn't build a contender around them because he can do both the scoring and facilitation.
Who's
I
in
think
Zion's
Anthony Davis is probably better than Zion, but I don't view it as saying
far.
If you got a couple pieces around Anthony Davis, you could build a contender with him as the centerpiece. He just isn't that sort of player. He's incredible. He's a superstar, but I feel like Zion's ability to be an offensive hub is really unique, and I think that's why I'm a fan of LaMelo, despite the fact that he has really bad tattoos.
That's when we're old, because he's just got to throw on some Asian characters. But who is in Zion's tier, in your opinion?
That's a tough one.
He's very good. He's very good.
He is an exceptional scorer.
Is he a top 20 player? Like, everything considered, going into the big board of next season, power rankings, is Zion a top 20 player?
Probably not, even though I think he is.
He could be. Right.
This is kind of gets me back to my conversation, or earlier part of this conversation, is that I want to see the Zion team. I want to see Zion as the focal point. I don't want to see Ingram. I don't want to see McCollum. I don't want to see DeJounte. And we're not going to get that there.
Nope.
To me, I want the purity of the Zion Williamson experience. I want him with those 2 3-and-D wings, with like at least a big who can space the floor a bit, and whoever else in the backcourt. Ideally, a 3-and-D guy, but whatever. I know what you're saying. These are hyper-specific stuff, but
the reason we don't see it because the Pelicans can't count on it, right? He's too up and down, and he's too unavailable. You cannot go by that strategy.
No, I mean, that is 100% it. You can't sell out to get the team that's built specifically around Zion, and then he's like, well, cool, I'm not playing this year.
Right. Right.
I mean, that said, he played 70 games last season, but then got hurt for the playoffs. Right. So it's like, it's happening. It's just got to occur at a time that's least devastating for your team. The year before, 29 games. 2022 didn't play. The year before that, 61. The year before that, 24.
Yeah.
There's just no guarantee he'll be there, which means that you have to have a Brandon Ingram and a McCollum for that time when Zion's like, oh, by the way, I'm out for the next 6 months. I understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's when you're like, bring your running club to our bar because the cool kids stop coming. And yeah, I mean, the Pelicans were more interesting to me previously than currently because we've seen how this team build works, and it's not easy building a team around these pieces. And no one really wanted Brandon Ingram this offseason. He was one of the top guys rumored to move, and the fan bases on social media kind of echo the vibe in the league, which is like, we just don't like him. He's not bad. We just don't want to trade the assets for him. Like, not interested in him. He's one of those players who maybe gets good statistics, is interesting, is tall, but like has never proved to be invaluable for a winning team. And notoriously surly. Weird bunch of characters on that Pelicans team. Like, I repeat, I think we're in the era of affability because all these teams are trying to gather chemistry. We're considering chemistry a lot more than we were, especially coming off of the Warriors run.
You're just Villanova maxed.
Well, think about LeBron and everywhere he goes. And think about Heat culture, right? It is just chemistry. And think about the criticisms of Philly. This is more a part of the conversation than I ever remember.
One last point about Zion here is that a couple of years ago, you averaged like 27 a game, and that was 8th in the league. Since that time, we've seen scoring really continue to explode apace, right? Guys went from scoring just at the tip of like, at like 30, at like 30 a game, and now they're just cruising past that. Embiid was averaging like 36 a game, which is insane. Luka averaged like 33, whatever. Like high 20s are kind of standard now. So Zion is interesting when you say, is he a top 20 player? Because 3 years ago, he averaged 27 a game, which was 8th in the league. Last year, he averaged 23 a game, which put him at 28th. Dropped 20 spots while going down 4 points. So, like, Zion is a top 10 scorer with hyper efficiency, is an elite player. But Zion, who is scoring the same per game as Markkanen, Desmond Bane, Jaylen Brown, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, Paul George, Anthony Simons, not the same guy.
Banchero's an interesting one. I'm no Banchero fan, but I have him ranked probably higher than Zion based off of his trajectory of his age and career and based off of his availability.
I kind of meant to have him in that conversation too.
He's too young. He can squander this year and still retain a vibe.
Well, I mean with Ant, but he is younger than those guys like Ja.
For sure.
Players who have already established themselves as being kind of all-star caliber. Mm-hmm. Tyrese Maxey also kind of in that conversation. I mean, he's only 23. He's 1 year older than Ant.
He's kind of a made man, right? Like, I don't think anyone accuses Maxey of being an MVP candidate in the way they do for Edwards.
No. And I guess I'm mostly saying not even a huge like Maxey booster, because I think his size and his lack of facilitation, rebounding, and defense means that he's mostly just a ball handler scorer, and he's extremely good at it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't see him developing into like a top 10 player necessarily. I think he's very good at what he does, but he's not a overly like well-rounded guy.
Yeah. I'm just looking quickly at plus minus, which is a bad stat, but just for this purpose, Zion is
Well, we've established that all stats are bad, so feel free.
it comes with caveats, specific caveats that other stats don't. Zion Williamson is a 23rd player around Derek White and Scotty Barnes. That's about right to me. Al Horford, Markkanen, Hartenstein, like it's noisy. But if you go down, 32, Anthony Edwards, Paul George, 33, Maxey, 34. Like, I'm trying to see a great player who's low, which would be like Karl Anthony Towns is like in the 50s. You know, like, and Towns is better than Zion.
Yeah, I also think, Zion, which year was he hurt in? He was hurt in 22, right? He missed the whole year.
Yeah, I think
he missed like the entire year.
Yeah, and it's smile bias. He's like such a cool dude that people want to paint him as like, oh, he doesn't even care. He's taking this off. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think he struggles with everything else a dog does. But I will say just. Sorry to cut you off. My bad. I just wanted to add a little more context and then go back to that. Yeah.
His best year was 2021, which is wild to think about a guy that young. It's like, well, in his prime, Zion, that was the year he scored 27 a game, and by BPM, with all the caveats, he was 11th. So like I'm just saying,
that's
I think we know Zion.
That's his best year,
but he was also 21 or 20. I just mean Zion's another guy that maybe we never get the version of Zion that could exist. We just forget that he's also freaking young. That's all.
So I guess the question is, are there players who are evergreen who just need the right things around them? Like, is Zion the same player he was then as now and in 5 years? All you have to do is get like a real stretch, a couple 3-and-D guys, a distributor so he can play a little off ball, and a buckets guy at the 4. Which every star needs, but is he evergreen? Can you just drop him into a situation and he would become an MVP caliber guy?
I think Zion, because of his limitations that sort of echo Ben Simmons in some ways, he's not as limited as Ben Simmons, to be honest. No, he's more limited than Ben Simmons. Because he can't rebound or defend that way.
Yeah.
Like, he has the same shooting limitations as Giannis or Simmons or even Draymond or whatever. So it does require personnel to make up for his lack of spacing. But he has some other ones too. Like, he's not an elite rebounder. He doesn't defend that well.
Yeah.
But just as a scorer, he really is insane. And,
insane.
He just turned 24. I don't know. I think
that's not good.
Skinny Zion.
That's too old.
Skinny Zion.
I mean, I like the idea of Skinny Zion. As you can tell, like, I'm mad at him because, like, oh my God, he was going to be the face of the NBA, and he was Wemby before Wemby. People were having viewing parties during the lottery for him.
Yeah.
He was going to change 4 franchises in that night. And then he comes out and he's like tantalizing, but nothing more.
I mean, part of this is I watched him for the first time live in New Orleans last year, and pretty good seats. And I feel like I got it. It's not the dunks, because he really doesn't do a ton of jams in the NBA like he did at Duke.
He's kind of small. Yeah, he's big, but he's not tall.
Right. He's big. It's that first step going left. It's just preposterous for a guy of his carriage, if you will. Everyone knows he wants to go left. They're overplaying his left. It just doesn't matter. It's so fucking fast. It's insane. For a guy of his size and strength and weight, you can't defend it. He just gets to his left. And if you overplay so much that, like, you give him his right, he'll just go right. It's like, okay, I'm going to play literally on your left side, then he just goes right. He's not that limited. But that first step in person with his size and his ability to finish through contact, it was like, this is a joke.
And that gives me kind of pause, or that makes me kind of weary of him, Because you're telling me his strength is like creating his own shot with the dribble. Like, that's not what I want from him.
What do you mean?
Like, I don't want Zion Williamson to like square up his guy and then go to his left or take his man off the dribble. Like, I kind of want him to have a gravity in a different way, right? Like, if he's single teamed and squaring up to his man, that's not the best version of his prototype on a team. Mm-hmm. He needs to be roaming around like a free safety, just wrecking havoc, right?
Oh, I disagree. I think
you want the ball in his hands, like
absolutely
on the dribble.
Absolutely, I think what Zion could do, and again, this is theoretical because he's never on the court, is the same thing that Giannis does, the same thing that LeBron does, the same thing that Jokic does. He gets the ball, he attacks the paint. Mm-hmm. You can't defend him one-on-one without fouling him. He gets tons of and ones because he's so strong, and he's a good decision maker. The help comes, he kicks the ball. Right. You send an extra defender, two to the ball, as they say. Yeah. He makes the right pass, and I think he is a better passer than Giannis is. He's a willing passer, but the problem is that they don't run the offense through him enough. They do somewhat. I think the closest they came was that year, which may have been under Van Gundy, which I think was his best season. But other than that, it's like, okay, well, we have McCollum and we have Ingram and now there's DeJounte. Like, give me just the pure Zion. You're the point guard. You're the Giannis. You're the LeBron. Except then, he blows out his knee and gains 700 pounds.
Maybe where I'm going with this thought is, I think the best version of Zion is when he's the second or third best player on a team, sadly. And he's going to be the most electric because he's Big Z, but like, he probably sees his best year statistically and winning wise as a Robin.
It's possible, but I just think that his issues defensively, rebounding, lack of spacing, kind of demands that he be your number one option and the way that you run your offense. And I think we've kind of hit on it. He's not healthy enough to really commit to that effort. And if you can't commit to that effort, then you don't get the right people around him.
Right. And I'm not saying he should not be the best, the most prolific scorer on his team. I think there's a better player on his team that doesn't score, sort of like what LeBron does. Because if you drop Zion onto a bad team, I don't know. If you drop Zion onto a good team, it's a wrap. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's not to say that you couldn't have the right personnel around him, to make it work. I think if you swapped him in for Giannis on those teams with the Bucks, I don't think they'd be as good because he can't do some of the things that Giannis can defensively. He can't play that free safety role with the same effectiveness because he's just not that big.
But what if you drop him into like the Clippers instead of Paul George? And I think Paul George is better than Zion, but currently, that's a good situation for Zion, right?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of good situations for him. I just feel like the optimized version, you've just got to have the paint clear with a Brook Lopez.
He sounds
basically going. I mean, I would say the same thing about Giannis, about Draymond without Curry's presence.
Giannis and Draymond aren't ice cream makers. I mean, Giannis. I wish we saw more Zion. I don't know, man. Like, still an unknown. He's not like Ja. We know about Ja, right? Like, there's few curiosities in his game. There's few curiosities in Edwards' game. Zion is still kind of like a second-year rookie.
Yeah, I just feel like if you have a primary ball handler that can't reliably shoot jump shots, especially from three, you kind of just have to go 5 out. Yeah. It's tough not to, if that's going to be the guy you run the offense through. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping he'll have a big year, but I just do not like the Pelicans build, so I'm kind of bummed about that. He's just going to have to become a Clipper.
Get him on the Knicks. Come on, assemble that Duke super team, or actually the McCain Zion connection into the future. I love that.
Oh man, one and done bus factory.
You know what? You know what
Never.
doesn't?
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.